this point it was fatal, and he was going to die.
In the days that followed, David's temperature spiked as high as 105 degrees. He began hemorrhaging from his intestines and vomiting blood. Dr. Shearer struggled to treat him inside the bubble.
He was to the point where his fever could not be controlled, his intestinal bleeding could not be controlled. It was just impossible. This contraption that protected him was now his greatest threat. It had to go. It had to go.
Shearer told David that it was time to leave his bubble. On February the 7th, 1984, David began to make his way out.
He crawled into the supply bubble and took all his effort. And Shearer put his hands under David's arms and pulled him out and laid him on the gurney.
David was wheeled to a sterile room, freed from isolation for the first time in his life.
The sun was coming through in little streams through the Venetian blind, and he saw what he said there were minute snowflakes, and it was actually the dust from the linen, and he was there and he was feeling comfortable. He was playing with the snowflakes.
But David's fever and bleeding persisted, and his condition gradually deteriorated. Finally, he lapsed into a coma. On February the 22nd, 1984, David's parents were brought in to see him.
I looked over to the side of David's room, and there was a physician standing, and I asked him if I could remove my glove and touch David, and he nodded yes. So I walked over to David, and I took my glove off of my hand, and I stroked the back of his hand for the first and last time.
I've worked with many children that have been dying. They had only two concerns, even when they knew they were going to die. One was, is it going to hurt? The other one was, are you going to be here? If you can satisfy them on both of these points, they're very much at peace. And with most of them, including David, they just drift off into a coma. And so, the last hours or minutes, are just like going to sleep. It's just a very peaceful scene.
At 8 p.m. that night, David was pronounced dead.
It came, and it happened, and there was no emergency. There was no crew brought in to resuscitate. There were no tubes inserted. We decided that it was not going to happen. This was going to be a dignified death, and it was.
In death, David made his biggest contribution to medicine. His autopsy showed that Catherine's bone marrow had contained traces of a dormant virus. Once inside David's defenseless body, the virus had spread rapidly, producing hundreds of tumors. It was the first direct proof that a virus can cause cancer. But there were many other discoveries attributable to David's unique existence. And if these discoveries had done little to help David, they have helped to treat thousands of other immune-compromised children. But the debate continues as to whether David himself had paid too high a price for the advancement of medicine.
David was almost certainly the first human guinea pig in history. The first human being to live their entire lives in a laboratory capsule. And I don't think we ought to do that again.
He was not a guinea pig in the sense that we delivered him with the intent of having an experimental subject. But we had to continue our research because we were working in an area where there was no previous experience.
A team of dedicated and courageous people, including David and his family set out to treat an incurable disease. And in the process, they gave him 12 years of good life that he would not have had otherwise.
I don't have regret, and I don't have blame. Any parent who has lost a child wonders if their brief life has meant something to the world. And science has said to me, yes.
You can find out more about this remarkable story at channel4.com/science. Well, next tonight, could internet dating be the reason why a young woman has gone missing without a trace?